Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for Connecticut's virtual Rare Disease Day. I know we are all accustomed to having this event in our beautiful capital, and unfortunately, the pandemic says otherwise, but we're happy to have you guys here today. We have a jam-packed agenda, so I am literally going to just start things off right now, and we're going to get going. Our first guest speaker today is Lieutenant Governor Susan Candela, who's got a few words to say. Susan?
Thank you so much. Good morning to everyone. And normally I look forward to greeting everyone at Advocacy Day at our beautiful state capitol. We can't do that this year, so thank you for inviting me to join you virtually, and hopefully next February 28th we'll be in person together in Hartford. I want to thank Nord, Kristen, Angel, Father Nick Carlutzis, and John Hopper, all my friends, for inviting me to participate. And I also want to shout out my friend Myrna Watanabe, who has made her life's mission finding a cure for sporadic inclusion body myositis. And I know that if you talk to friends and family, every family is touched by a rare disease. And I have a cousin who is challenged by Prader-Willi syndrome. So many of our kids in our state and our country suffer with a rare disease. So the work that you are doing in honor of yourselves and your family members is really important. And Governor Lamont and I just want to say thank you for educating our residents. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for the policy work that you do. And thank you for all of the hard work, whether it's fundraising or advocacy, fighting for new treatments and cures of rare diseases. Governor Lamont and I want you to know that we stand with you and are ready to help, and that we strongly support quality, affordable health care for everyone in our state and our country, because we think that that is a right that everyone has. And we are looking forward to working with you all going forward. And just want to say that I'm happy to see my colleagues, Representative Meskers and Senator Austin. Thank you both for the work that you are doing. And thanks for having me this morning, and look forward to hearing the rest of the program.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. We appreciate you being here today and for your continued support of the rare disease community. So now I would like to take a moment, and we have a short video, a welcome message from our President and CEO, Peter Saltonstall.
Welcome. I'm Peter Saltonstall, President and CEO of the National Organization for Rare Disorders, and would like to welcome you to our 2021 Virtual Rare Disease Day event. Before we begin, I'd like to send out a special thank you to all those advocates and others who have spent so much energy and time supporting the rare disease community. So thank you. The role of Rare Disease Day is to bring together advocates and patients from around the world to help tell the story about rare diseases. There are events like this happening virtually all over this country today, and some of the audiences that we're really trying to focus on are those in the state legislatures, where advocates and legislative people come together to understand the burden of rare diseases and the impacts it can have on them, and therefore build the appropriate legislation and pathway to make sure that bills are passed that support rare disease patients. As a matter of fact, NORD's doing that in a very focused way with rare disease advisory councils. We've got them set up down in 16 states and are building them in others. I think 2021 is going to be an interesting year for us. The reason I say that is because we've just come off of a very difficult year with a pandemic that's impacted the rare disease community in a number of different ways and has really shown some of the inequities in the healthcare system. For all of you that are watching today, the importance of the Rare Disease Advisory Councils is critical to the success of being able to communicate the story and the needs of the rare disease patient community. So in conclusion, I would really like to make sure that I recognize and thank all of those sponsors who have helped us make this day a reality. Without your continued support, none of this would happen. So a sincere thank you from all of us at NORD and the patient community. Taking part in events like today's are really important to the rare disease community, and we must always remember that alone we are rare, and together we are strong.
Okay, great. And let me just get up our screen here. Okay, so again, welcome. Thank you all for being here today. Just a quick disclaimer, NORD and our volunteers are unable to provide medical advice or legal advice. So this disclaimer will be in the chat box momentarily, and feel free to read it if you would like. I'd also like to take a quick opportunity to acknowledge our wonderful volunteer state ambassador, Leslie Bennett, who has put together today's program along with some additional volunteers. And, you know, we really appreciate all of our Rare Action Network volunteers. And Leslie is joining us today periodically. Unfortunately, some scheduling conflicts came up last minute for her. So we have two fabulous, wonderful people that have stepped in to MC today's event on behalf of Leslie. And I'm happy to introduce both of them now. Father Nick, or Nick as he says that we can reference him, is a New Fairfield resident. He lives in New Fairfield with his wife Megan and 3 children, ages 9, 7, and 5. Their youngest child, Lucia, has a rare disease disorder known as CFC, and I will allow Nick to actually pronounce that so I don't butcher the disease state name.
It
Nick,
comes from the Greek.
Would you like to say hello, Nick?
Hi, thank you, everyone. It's cardiofaciocutaneous syndrome.
I think if I practiced it, I would have gotten it. I apologize. And our other MC for today is John Hopper, who carries many titles. He resides in Greenwich, Connecticut. He's the president of the Fibrolamellar Cancer Foundation. He's also the co-chair for NORD's Rare Cancer Coalition. John, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks, Kristen, very much. And just for 2 seconds here, this is a special day for me in particular because our founder, Tucker Davis, passed away on Rare Disease Day in 2010. And since then, I would say the message I have for everybody is to be the mouse that roared. As a small foundation for a rare cancer that hits 12 to 34-year-olds, where there's no curative treatments, we have found that we have to be as loud as the big cancers. And in fact, last year during the pandemic, Mark Zuckerberg and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative recognized us and is funding research for us. And Stone Point Capital in Greenwich is giving us office space and free administrative services. So I think by knowing for all of us to basically be that mouse that roared, for people to understand who you are, to get out there to say thank you to all the local, state and federal folks, corporations, and public and private donors is particularly important. So thank you for letting me be co-MC today.
Well, thank you both for being here. We have a great group of advocates here in Connecticut, and I encourage all of you to get more involved with our Connecticut Rare Action Network program by contacting Leslie, or you can contact myself. I will pop some contact information into the chat box. And please feel free throughout the day to use the chat box to post your questions. We have a really busy schedule today, a great agenda with some fantastic speakers. and we want to ensure we have time to provide opportunities for all of our speakers. So if we don't have time for a live Q&A, you can certainly at least address questions in the chat box. Thank you. Okay, John and Nick, I'm going to let you guys take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. Nick and I will go back and forth, and I will apologize if I don't pronounce people's names correctly. It's truly just me not being all that versed on everyone here in particular. Hey, but first and foremost, we have Senator Catherine Austin, who's the chair of the Appropriations Committee, and followed by Candace Flaherty. So, Catherine, you're on.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for having me here today. I really think that the star of what I have to say is Candace. Candace came to me 3 years ago, and we've been working really hard to get a piece of legislation through to have insurances pay for the required foods for those young people who have PKU. And I am not going to try to pronounce that either. Many of my colleagues first had to be convinced that we should pay for the necessary food for those who have PKU. But once they understood the disease and understood the financial burden that families who have children with PKU, they were really more than willing to come on board. And I would like to, if with all due respect, to bring Candace on now to talk about her family's situation and why it's so important for us to have this piece of legislation pass. I saw her in the queue.
Catherine, you might have to take yourself off of mute if you're in here.
Candace, are you on?
Oh, Candace, sorry.
Yep. I don't know if she can hear us. So she has 2 children that have PKU. The financial wherewithal for the family is certainly hard for her to afford the correct food for her children. And the insurance companies are hesitant to take on this expense, but I look on it as an expense that certainly provides quality of life for these people, both when they're children, infants, children, and adults. I think it's something that we have to do. I thought that the legislation would pass last year, but as you all know, we went into a pandemic. Going to be happy to speak about this bill on the floor of the Senate in front of the Lieutenant Governor, and many of my colleagues in the House are on today, and I'm hoping that all of them will stand up and speak for the need of this particular piece of legislation. It is not the only one, and I see Candace is now off mute. Candace?
Yes, hi. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yes, PKU is phenylketonuria. So, and thank you to Senator Austin for everything she's done for my kids and for the PKU and greater rare disease community. We all are very grateful that you're here, and the rest of your colleagues are here as well. So my story, and I'll try to keep it brief. My husband and I have 2 children, Marguerite and Henry. Both children have PKU. For one to have PKU, both parents must be carriers. All subsequent children have a 25% chance of having PKU. Thanks to newborn testing, which I always pay attention to because it's so important. Our kids have been treated from birth, and their PKU has been well under control. In fact, Marguerite, thank you very much, has a 4.1 GPA at NFA here. And Henry is a straight A student and on track to do the same. This is amazing because without PKU care, our kids would suffer permanent mental damage. PKU patients need not just low protein foods, but they need to drink a critical medical formula several times a day for life. Our issue, I spend hours on the phone with our insurance provider, Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, our pharmacy, and Edge Park, which is our pharmacy, and our doctors and amazing metabolic team at CCMC to make sure that we receive our monthly shipment of specialized formula. There is an existing Connecticut state mandate about PKU. However, it's confusing, limited, and not sufficient to care for Connecticut's PKU community. The intent is there, but the language is not quite. at least once a year and recently about every 3 months. Anthem only agrees to cover about half of that total cost of the formula that our kids need. If I can't pay, of course, then Anthem can't ship. We can receive a bridge supply from the very supportive manufacturers, but still it's an argument all the time. The formula costs for each child around $3,000 a month. So it ends up being, if Anthem pays half, we get around to about $36,000 for our family for a year. So we do have an out-of-pocket max, blah, blah, blah. We parents become, as all of you other parents are, experts at what our insurance will cover. But still, that's $5,000 that we have to come up with. That's our out-of-pocket max. We have to come up with it ends up being about the end of mid-February. So that's a lot of money. And it's still an argument all the time. I still get a phone call saying PKU care is not included in the out-of-pocket max. Anyhow, it's constant. It's a constant struggle. And it's more than I can handle, and it's extremely expensive. My husband has a terrific job and it's a dependable paycheck. Still, it's a lot. So, and I'm sure there's most families who are not able or willing or know how or just willing to do the work on the phone that I work part-time and work from home. I teach art, but otherwise it's a part-time job so that I can be at home to handle my kids' healthcare, of course, and to sit on the phone with the insurance companies. So thank you for your help and your attention to this issue. Offer testimony if you can, if you've had similar issues. And thank you. That's all I have to say today.
So I want to thank Candace for being so brave and bringing this forward. And I look forward to this bill passing, but it is not the only rare disease that we have to take care of as a legislature. And I encourage parents who have children who find themselves in similar conditions to talk to their legislators and make sure they understand not only the emotional toll, but the financial toll that it has on families, and to bring their situations forward so that we can deal with them. Thank you very much.
Kristen, I think it's back to you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Senator Olson and Candace, for speaking and sharing your stories. So I'm going to take a brief moment and talk about a few things that we focus here on at NORD and that we're working on here in Connecticut and nationwide. There's 25 to 30 million Americans living with a rare disease, and there's approximately over 7,000 rare diseases. It's an estimated 1 in 10 Americans have a rare disease, and state policymakers have limited awareness and knowledge of the impact that the rare diseases can have on patients, their caregivers, and overall health care systems. A lot of healthcare decisions are made at the state level. The solution, rare disease advisory councils. It is a diverse body representing the rare disease community to advise the state government on their common obstacles. It's an opportunity for government officials and the rare disease community and all stakeholders to partner to develop resources necessary to prevent and address barriers in a strategic way. There's currently 16 states that have enacted Rdac legislation, and I'm going to continue to say Rdac because Rare Disease Advisory Councils is fairly long. Connecticut is actually listed here as having had one. However, the task force that was put in place has since sunset. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. In December, NORD launched Project Rdac. This project is to optimize existing Rdacs that are out in the states and increase the number of Rdacs around the country. We're working with our volunteer ambassadors and our volunteer advocacy groups in all the different states to build up coalitions to develop an Rdac in their state and to help strengthen the Rdacs that are currently in place. NORD acts as a convener, providing opportunities for the Rdacs to collaborate with each other, which is great. We had our first meeting back in December with multi-state Rdacs, and they were able to provide updates as to the work they're doing and continue to learn from one another. The other purpose is to create educational resources and a guide to Rdacs every step of the way. We've hosted webinars. We'll continue to be hosting webinars. We've got one coming up very soon. I'm not exactly sure of the date. We developed toolkits and one-pagers revolving around the project Rdac and understanding. And in the chat, we'll post the links to the project Rdac program, as well as the one-pager of information and an overview of it. House Bill 7222 was passed in 2017, and it created a temporary rare disease task force. The Connecticut Task Force examined research, diagnosis, treatment, and education relating to rare diseases and made recommendations for the establishment of a group of experts to advise the Department of Health on rare diseases. Since this has sunset, NORD would like to see, we would like to see a permanent Rdac put in place here in Connecticut, and we do have work to do, but one of our goals would be to see a permanent rare disease advisory council set up here in the state of Connecticut. I happened to participate in a lot of these meetings that took place on the task force, and they were great. They connected rare disease patients with resources the state offered. They connected state agencies to one another to ensure that rare disease patients have access to things that they would need to support their journey in the rare disease space. I'm also going to briefly talk about our NORD state policy report card we put out every year. We just recently published our 6th edition, and we cover the issues that are covered. And we know this is not a full list of issues impacting the rare disease community, but these issues specifically are ones that we have focused on in this version of the state report card. And there is a lot of work to be done, but we also know that there is also some good areas that Connecticut is actually striving in. We'll also be sharing that link in the chat as well. To access the 6th edition, we have a quick brief video I'm going to show here.
So here we have the landing page for the 6th edition of the NORD State Report Card. We've just got a little intro text up here, and then we have the 8 issues that we assessed.
Kristen, we can't see your screen.
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, guys. Okay.
So here we have the landing page for the 6th edition of the NORD State Report Card. We've just got a little intro text up here, and then we have the 8 issues that we assessed in the 6th edition of the report right here. If you go over here, we have a drop-down bar where you can click and select your state. And then right underneath of that, we have all of these patient stories about some of the issues that are focused on in the report card. So now I'm just going to navigate to one of the issue pages. I'm going to click Medicaid financial eligibility, and that'll take you to this individual issue page. We just got a little bit of intro text again at the top, and then some more text about what the issue really is and why NORD cares about it. Underneath, then we have some text about the grading methodology for this section, as well as the rubric, which is available at the bottom, and also underneath of the map right here. Again, we have that drop-down bar where you can select your state. Then if you go to the left over here, you can click and access all of NORD's policy statements on the particular issue. And then you can also click and access the appendix for that section. So next, I'll look at the map a little bit. So you can hover over each state on the map and see the state's overall grade, which is bolded.
I'm having some technical issues on my end, so I'm not sure if the sound was good, but I will let you guys navigate to the state report card and explore the website on your own. I apologize for the glitch. I do want to emphasize that the state policy report card, the 6th edition, is a snapshot in time from November 2020. So any current legislation that has passed and is not reflected in this state report card. With the exception of the Rdacs, we did update that from December 2020. Appendices include detailed data, and each topic contains the methodology section. If you have questions regarding the state policy report card or you want to learn more information, please email policy@rarediseases.org, and they'll be happy to connect with you. Thank you. John, Nick?
Thank you, Kristen. It's a joy. I've known Kristen for a while from my former parish. She came to a great event that our ladies group had hosted to benefit NORD, and she's an amazing Associate Director of Advocacy and of Membership with NORD. Next, I want to introduce Representative William Pettit, House Ranking Member on the Connecticut General Assembly Public Health Committee, and also Representative Mitch Belinsky, also on the CGA Aging, Appropriations, and Education Committees, both champions of rare disease. Representatives William and Representatives Mitch, please take the floor.
Thank you. As you've noted already, I'm a retired physician, ranking member on public health, also on the education and energy and technology committees. I dealt with, as an practicing endocrinologist, I dealt with a number of very rare diseases during my career, dealing with adrenal, pituitary, and other genetic syndromes. I have a relative with a Turner type mosaic syndrome, not incredibly rare, but uncommon, who we were able to get into some clinical trials for therapy, which I think was helpful. I think this is an important issue that you need to advocate for, because it's difficult for each condition, obviously, to have a voice. So when you band together, I think you bring a power to this. I think a task force working group committee that keeps the important issues at the forefront are critical. Obviously, we continue to deal with medical issues during this pandemic, especially revolving around telehealth, insurance availability, high deductible plans, coverage for various procedures, et cetera. And many of the rare diseases may have therapies that require orphan type drugs that are very expensive, and some of those issues may need to be attacked at a federal level more effectively than a state level. But I think at least keeping the topic in front of people, legislators and the public in general, is a critical issue. So with that, I think I'll stop. I'm speaking to the choir here. You all know that and believe that, and hopefully you'll continue your efforts, and please reach out if needed. And with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Belinsky, and note that I also saw Representative Mesker's on the list as well. I don't know if he's still there. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. I'm Representative Mitch Belinsky, represent Newtown in the General Assembly, and I'm here not so much as a medical professional, but to congratulate the whole Rare Disease Network and community for building such a powerful network of sponsors, supporters, advocates. I was first introduced to this about 7 years ago. A constituent of mine, an 8-year-old named Daniela Delgado, came to my office and introduced me to the concept of the rare diseases and the fact that we have 250,000, maybe 300,000 or so people that suffer from rare diseases in the state of Connecticut, it needed and continues to need continued higher focus. But Daniela is a hero because right now I believe she's 15. She's getting ready to go into her next level of schooling. But when I first met this 8-year-old advocate, I thought she was about 35 because she spoke so eloquently and she's such a terrific advocate. So my hat goes off. My hat goes off completely to all the folks that are in this fight, and I just wanted to assure everybody that you have a lot of friends in the legislature, people like we're here with you. So continue to bring us the challenges and let us look for solutions. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you all. Next up is David Leeds, who is with the Hereditary Angioedema Advocate, and also my rep, Stephen Meskers. So David and Steve, you're on.
All right. So thank you very much. Good morning. So my name is David Leeds. I live in Avon, Connecticut. I am a rare disease patient, rare disease parent, and a rare disease spouse. I want to take a moment to thank the Connecticut Rare Action Network and the National Organization of Rare Disorders for sponsoring this event, and the members of the CGA for being here to learn more about the impacts of rare diseases on Connecticut residents and their families. My rare disease is called hereditary angioedema, or HAE, with normal C1 inhibitor. This disease is the rarest type of an already rare disease, and it is estimated that it affects as few as 1 in a million people. My wife is in treatment for a rare tick-borne illness called Bartonellosis, and one of my sons was recently diagnosed with functional abdominal pain syndrome. As a family of 4, we're working to manage 3 different rare diseases. Today, I'd like to tell a quick story about one of my stays in the ICU, which resulted from a particularly bad series of HAE attacks. An HAE attack results in swelling that is caused by leakages in the blood vessels. HAE swelling can occur in a number of different parts of the body and manifest differently for different patients. For me, swelling always occurs in my face, lips, sinus, nose, head, mouth, tongue, and occasionally in my throat. The throat and tongue swellings are the most serious because they can cause my airway to become blocked, and if not treated, can be fatal. So my story was a particularly bad series of attacks in my throat, which sent me to the emergency department. Less for treatment and more for observation to make sure my throat didn't close. At the ED, my usual treatment regimen didn't work, so I was admitted. After being admitted and the swelling continued to worsen, I was transferred to the ICU over fears that I would need to be intubated. Fortunately, intubation wasn't necessary. So while in the ICU, I remember one specific conversation with my assigned resident. One day during rounds, she came into my room and asked if I worked in the medical field. I replied that I didn't. And her response was, "You know so much about your condition and all of the medications, like how each one works, and know a great deal about the pathophysiology for your disease." My answer was, "I have to know everything about my disease and treatments because you and the other doctors treating me here don't." She thought about it for a few moments and said, "You're right, we don't." So that day, a young doctor learned something about a particular rare disease and rare diseases in rare patients. Hopefully, she will carry that lesson with her throughout her career. This story is not unique to me. This is the story of the rare disease patient in the hospital. We, or our caregivers, need to know everything about our conditions because the average ER or internal medicine doctor doesn't. In fact, it is likely that a treating physician hadn't heard of your disease before you showed up in one of your beds. So now I want to bring this story to the present, in the midst of a global pandemic, which results in severe illness and hospitalization. So imagine I have COVID-19 and my symptoms are so bad that I cannot breathe. I go to the hospital. I also have a rare disease that no one has ever heard of, and the hospital staff doesn't really know how to treat. And I have COVID and may need to be put on a ventilator to survive. No one is allowed to come to the hospital with me, so my caregivers cannot come and tell the doctors about my disease. They can't tell the team to contact my specialists who can help them to understand what they know about how COVID might affect my rare condition, or what they've learned about how to manage the rare disease in the event of COVID. If I manage to recover from COVID while in the ICU, we just have to hope that my rare disease doesn't kill me before they can send me home. As a patient with one over 7,000 known rare diseases, I don't expect the medical teams at the hospitals to know what it is or how to treat it. I only hope that when they encounter me or another rare patient in their care, they listen, they're open to learning something new, and they're not afraid to reach out for help. I likewise don't expect the public health officials and government teams working on vaccination priorities and other difficult decisions in prioritizing scarce resources to have heard of my disease or most of the other 7,000. What I do expect is that they recognize that there are more than 300,000 rare disease patients in Connecticut, and many can tell a story just like mine. Alone, we are rare. Together, we are 10% of the Connecticut population. Our medical issues are scary, unknown, and mostly untreatable. A permanent rare disease council in Connecticut can provide a voice for us to tell our stories about what makes rare disease patients different from other people with chronic conditions. In this time of COVID, it will ensure that the needs of the rare disease community are considered in public health decisions, such as vaccination priority and distribution of care. In more normal times, it will help the CGA in Connecticut shape policies that support rare disease patients, caregivers, and their families. Thank you for being here today to listen to my story and for being here to learn more about rare diseases.
Thanks, David. Stephen, you're up.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I want to thank the group for hosting this and what I think is such an important issue that we face as a society and as a state. And, you know, I joined the legislature 2.5 years ago. This is into my second term. And rare diseases have, at some level, been in my mind for quite some time. I was a partial caregiver to my nephew, or my cousin actually, who died from muscular dystrophy. One of the reasons I ran for office, I'd had a banking career for about 35 years. One of the reasons I ran for office was I was at a dinner for my sister, who runs a mesothelioma foundation, is one of the rare diseases. And the people stood up and they complimented her on what she had done and the fact that her advice, her caring had helped save so many lives. And I had been in banking for 35 years and I was, I'm a fairly, I think, a decent, reflective person. And I looked at my shoes and I said, what will people say when I go? And what will I have to contribute to society? And I was thrilled to be invited to join today because I can't claim much in the way of accomplishments to this date. I'm, you know, one of our representatives is Mr. Pettit is a physician, people who dedicated their lives to the health and care of other people. I can't make that claim, but I want you to know that I hear the concerns of the group. I hear the concerns of the individual rare diseases, and I believe it's incumbent on us to work together as a group. And you can count on my support as a representative to support you in the effort for rare diseases. And, you know, as a personal shout out to my sister for her work at the Mesothelioma Foundation. And I thank you all for this.
Thank you, Representative Meskers and David. It's very apparent that alone we are rare and together we are strong. It's just a beautiful thing to witness this in action today with all of our speakers and all of our state reps. So we're grateful for everyone's presence. Next, I want to call forward Suzanne Candela with Patient Airlift Services. Suzanne?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and introduce everybody to PALS. This is, I guess, my fourth Rare Disease Day event this week. And after, you know, hearing so many patient stories on all of the calls, I really think that PALS is a great resource for the rare disease community. So let me educate everyone on what Patient Airlift Services does and can help the rare disease community out with. I did send Leslie over a.
Hi, Candace, or Suzanne, I'm so sorry. I'm having some difficulty with my PowerPoint app. I'm trying to get it open again. It crashed. So bear with me 1 second. Continue to talk and I'll get it up in just a moment.
Okay, awesome. So what PALS is we're a volunteer pilot organization, and we have over 800 volunteer pilots throughout the states from on the East Coast, from Maine to Florida, New York to Wisconsin. In that area, we've spent the last 10 years expanding, and we've done a pretty good job at that. These volunteer pilots utilize their own private aircrafts, fuel, and time, so they pay for everything. It's completely free of charge for the patients, and their passion is to fly, but they want to do it with a purpose. They use their own general aviation aircrafts, which are about 4 to 6 seater planes, and they're all obviously licensed pilots. We also work with some corporate sponsors. Southwest Airlines donates a couple hundred vouchers to us a year that we can utilize for further distances, as these smaller aircrafts can't always travel, you know, super far distances like cross country. Let's see. The further flights. Our goal is to eliminate logistics as a barrier to, you know, get patients to the best medical care for their treatment, which I know for the rare disease community, you know, your local physicians don't always, they're not always super knowledgeable about rare conditions, like a lot of you had said. We've worked with NORD for several years and made some great connections all around the country. Specifically, there's you know, some clinics at CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philly, and whatnot. Oh, there's my slide. Thank you. And you know, with different rare disease support groups and whatnot, we have acquired quite a few patients who need to travel a significant distance for their treatment. To qualify, the passengers need to be ambulatory, and there does need to be somewhat of a financial need. We don't require a copy of the W-2 like some other organizations do. We really do try to help as many people as we can. And, you know, say a family makes, you know, a decent salary, but they might have 4 kids and these exorbitant medical bills. So we really do try to factor in everything and help as many people as we can. Also, since we utilize private aircrafts, a lot of rare disease patients, cancer patients are immune compromised. So this is a much safer way for them to travel. Also, other qualifications is the passenger does need to be somewhat ambulatory to climb aboard one of these small aircrafts, but we do have some planes in our fleet that have small staircases if need be. And we also have one stretcher plane in our fleet, and that operates anywhere east of the Mississippi. I just received word, unfortunately, yesterday that it was down until July. So I just want to throw that out there, but that will be up and running, and they are actually, I believe, making it a little bit more easily accessible for patients. So we're not an air ambulance service. We don't have any medical attention on board. But if you do need to get to treatment that is over a 2-hour car ride away, we can certainly help with that. Our data, oh, can you go back to the other slide, the previous one? The one right there. All right, awesome. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary in November. And when we started out, like I said, we only flew in the Northeast territory of the United States. But now, as I mentioned before, we fly all the way down to Florida, all the way out west to Wisconsin. We just did our first flight from Virginia to Wisconsin and utilized some new pilots out that way. And that was totally successful. The patient actually has to fly every other week, and we've been able to fill his flight, which is great. And since we've been acquiring pilots in states that we had previously never flown in, it just makes us way more able to help, you know, there's such a larger range of patients, you know, in different parts of the country that we previously weren't able to. Our data really speaks for itself. As you can see in my slide, we have helped over 2,900 families with over 23,000 free flights. We've done 900 veteran flights, which I'll get to in a minute. And altogether, we have flown over 5,400,000 miles. And you can go to the next slide, please. This is just one of our patients who we've been flying since she was a very little girl. As you can see, she has a rare cancer and she lives in northern Maine. She gets her treatment at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, Massachusetts, which would be, I believe, over a 10-hour drive for her. And she, you know, had to go pretty frequently to Dana-Farber. We have been able to help her with, I think she's flown since her 59th PALS flight. So we've been able to help her over 59 times. She actually spoke on our gala this year. She's 17 years old now, and she's a senior in high school, and she's doing pretty well. The number of times a patient can fly with us is completely unlimited. We would like to support you for your entire journey. So some patients have to fly every week, and we are able to support that. We can even help out with ground transportation to pick you up at the airport when you land and bring you over to the facility and then bring you back to the airport for your return flight. And yeah, that's about it for this slide. You can go on to the next slide, please. Also, I know that before I had mentioned we've done over 900 veteran flights. I would like to just point out that we do have a PALS for Patriots program where we fly combat wounded veterans and active military members to different retreats like the Travis Mills Foundation up in Maine. We also fly them to medical appointments too and have some connections at different VAs, local VAs and whatnot. So we try, you know, to help as many military personnel as we can. And if anyone, you know, has any military camp or retreat that they would like to tell us about, we would love to contact them and see if we could form a partnership. Feel free to send me a referral or even just an inquiry. I'll provide my contact information in the chat box. The intake process for a flight is pretty simple. And like I said, it does require that the patient is ambulatory and doesn't need medical attention on the flight. And of course that you are traveling over a 2-hour car ride. So we do ask for 5 business days notice. And, if you are flying in a zone where we have a lot of pilots, sometimes we could turn a flight around in even shorter than that. We just, a lot of work does go into these flights. So we do ask if, the more advanced notification that we get, the better. And, we put in place some new COVID protocols, of course, wearing a mask through the duration of the flight, just to try to keep everyone as safe as possible. And once we get your request in, you will receive a call back from a mission coordinator from our office within 24 hours, and we'll get the ball rolling with that. That's about it from me. Feel free to send me any messages, reach out to me directly if you have any questions, of course, or if you know of anyone who could benefit from our services. I'm an outreach coordinator and a mission coordinator, so I'm a great point of contact if you want to inquire about that. Thank you again for having me on this call, and I really hope that we can be of service to the rare disease community in Connecticut.
Thanks so much, Suzanne. Boy, what a great benefit. And I know certainly a lot of my cancer patients with fibromyalgia are trying to get to clinical trials right now. Very difficult. And I think your service will be great for many of us here in the rare disease community. So thank you for everything you did. Hey, a quick change of the agenda. I believe Senator Will Haskell has a time commitment here. So Will, we're going to put you on next, and then Gene Kelly will follow you. But Senator Haskell, if you're there, if you can come on at this point here. Is Senator Haskell with us? Okay. If not, then Gene Kelly with Brian's Hope, you're up next.
Good morning, everyone. I too wanted to thank Leslie for putting this day together for all of us. We're blessed to be gathered with a common bond in these challenging times. I've been asked to speak to newborn screening, a passion inspired by my son, Brian, who has faced the challenges of living with adrenoleukodystrophy for the past 26 years. He's sitting, listening in. And Dr. Pettit, you're probably the only person that knows what that is. It's a disease that affects boys at the age of 4 to 7, typically, when their disease manifests itself when the myelin in the brain, the insulation of our nervous system, is destroyed and they lose ability. When Brian was 6, he walked into the hospital for a bone marrow transplant and left 85 days later in a wheelchair with no speech, significant loss of vision, unable to eat. Anyway, you get the idea. However, in his very quiet way, he has been a ripple of hope in influencing newborn screening, especially newborn screening of ALD. Although newborn screening programs differ state to state, there are national recommendations to guide and support states in the development of their program. That committee that works to set these guidelines is called the Advisory Committee on Heritable Diseases in Newborns and Children. They meet regularly to discuss proposals from parent advocates, researchers, organizations, etc. In addition, the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services reviews the decisions. I was fortunate to be at NIH when adrenoleukodystrophy came before the panel. Amazingly stressful and educational, but it is up to each state to determine what conditions are on their panel. Brian and I began our quest in a small room at the Capitol. and shared our story with the Public Health Committee. This is just an example of how a grassroots effort can move on to something very significant. In 2013, with very supportive legislators led by Len Fasano and many of our shoreline legislators, screening for ALD was added to Connecticut's list. It was passed unanimously, and the health department began screening when ALD was added to the RUSP, the gold standard of screening, in 2015. In the first 6 months, we identified 2 boys, and in turn, their family is investigated and found that 2 of the mother's sisters were carriers. It's a hereditary disease. So one screening can lead to the discovery of many in a family and save many lives. So Connecticut was the second state following New York. And now with families advocating across the country, testing for ALD is included in 19 states and the District of Columbia. We are fortunate here in Connecticut to be one of the states that tests for the most conditions nationwide. Our health department tests for 65 conditions. And last year, Connecticut added SMA, and in January, MPS 1. So many states across the country are now trending to add various conditions as they are accepted on the RUS. And I think it's interesting to note that 3 states added new conditions during the pandemic, which shows how truly life-saving newborn screening is. And I just want to thank the Connecticut legislator for all that you do, and I enjoy listening to all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. We really appreciate your story, your testimony, and just grateful for everyone's courage today to be with us as we together advance this cause for all of those that are in that rare community to receive the very best possible care. The next speakers that I want to introduce are Representatives Senator William Haskell, Chair of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee and Vice Chair of the Government Administration and Elections, together with, and after him, Representative Jillian Gilchrist, Vice Chair of Public Health Committee, and also a great advocate for our community. Last year, she introduced bills designed to lower copays and out-of-pocket costs on behalf of pulmonary hypertension patients. So before that, Senator Haskell, if you will.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me. And you've got a packed agenda, so I'll be very brief. Jean, thank you for sharing your family's story. I always learn a tremendous amount from conversations with advocates around the rare disease space. The most formative thing that I learned from my friend and my constituent, Dan Donovan, in Westport, Connecticut, is that rare diseases, they're really not rare. They impact 25 to 30 million Americans, 1 in 10 people. And as we see here today, and as we always see on around rare disease advocacy, each diagnosis impacts, of course, more than just that one patient, right? It impacts their family, their friends, their broader community. So I just wanted to hop on the call today to say I'm a new member of the Public Health Committee. I really look forward to working on this issue. I believe that we need to make healthcare affordable. I believe that screening can save lives, as Jean mentioned, and I look forward to being an ally. But also, given what I've seen firsthand in visiting Dan Donovan's office in South Norwalk, for example, and speaking with those in the rare disease community, it's so clear that creating a council where families can come together, learn from one another, share their experiences, and then share those experiences with lawmakers, because we are by definition pulled in a million directions. There are 5,000 bills proposed. I believe there are 7,000 identified rare diseases, and of course, many more. So to make sure that none of these issues fall through the cracks, that no family, no individual, no experience goes overlooked, it's so critical that these rare disease advisory councils come back to us legislators with recommendations. And I really am grateful for the work that these advisory councils are doing. I look forward to continuing the conversation. And it's great to see you all virtually. Hopefully we can gather in person next time around.
I think Jillian's on next.
Thank you, Senator Haskell. Is Jillian Gilchrist with us? I don't think so any longer.
Okay, so Nick, I'm going to introduce then two folks and just let everybody know we will change the agenda slightly here as people are kind of coming in. So just pay attention with us and bear with us. So Dr. Dmitry Kravtsov of the Vanessa Research, I'm going to put you on next, followed by Dan Donovan with a Rare Life Solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. John Dmitry is here. Hi, everybody. It's my great pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm a Vice President of Research and Development at Vanessa Research, and we are a drug development company based in Hamden, Connecticut. And our primary focus is finding a treatment for the ultra-rare microvillus inclusion disease, or MVID for short. It's a very rare unknown condition. There are probably less than 50 cases in the United States. However, this disease is a deadly genetic diarrhea which affects little kids soon after birth. It's terrible. It's literally the worst diarrhea known to the humankind. Kids can lose up to a third of their body weight per day with stool. So it's impossible to save these kids without intravenous rehydration, and they're hooked up to the IV line and have the IV hydration bag behind them 24/7, literally. So you can imagine that this caring for a child suffering from MVID is a huge challenge and enormous burden on their families, and also on the healthcare system, because intestinal transplantation and gut transplant is the only way to give these children a little bit of hope, because otherwise their lifespan is really, really short. It's less than 5 years on average. And what we are doing is we're trying to come up with the medical treatment for this disease. And we have developed a drug which can actually combat the diarrhea of the microvillus inclusion disease. And we're going through the clinical trials with this drug right now. So from our end, and this is the drug development, and working with rare diseases is also a huge challenge. So finding treatments for rare disease is often way more challenging than finding treatments for common diseases. And the reason is very simple. A lot less is known about rare diseases. There is an information vacuum, and a lot of work has to be done researching the pathology of the disease so that we could come up with ideas and the ways to treat it. And in this process, we really what helps us, the developers, as we are heavily relying on government initiatives that support drug development for rare diseases, such as Orphan Drug Program with FDA, Creating Hope, Priority Review Act, and so on. And I would like to express my thanks to the legislators there and tell you guys that we really need your support, that we kind of these programs are instrumental, very, very helpful to what we're doing. So today, this Rare Disease Day, again, I really appreciate you inviting me. I would like to express my support to the entire rare disease community, and my support to families affected by the rare diseases. And we know a lot of these families, hands-on, we know them personally. So and we understand how difficult for the families and children all these things are. Medical community, treating patients, organizations such as NORD and what you guys do, and all the government agencies. So thank you for the support. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you so much. And our next one will be Dan Donovan, please.
Hi, everyone. Do you have slides there? I mean, the first thing I want to do really is reiterate my thanks to Leslie, who is the consummate advocate for Connecticut Rare Diseases, and of course NORD. We're lucky to have NORD right here in Danbury, Connecticut, which immediately puts us on the map as a state in terms of leaders in rare disease. So I think that's fantastic to have people like that, and then people like Dmitry,
researching rare diseases in Connecticut. I'll say that, you know, my title here is meant to be a little bit, to prod you a little bit. And what I'll share with you are my experiences. These are my words alone. This has nothing to do with Nord or anybody else, but I want to share with you an experience that I had. Before I do, can we just go to the next slide? I love this slide. Oh, that's the one. I love this slide because I asked my team to come up with why rare is different, because we always think about rare, we always call it different, and very quickly they came up with 50 or so. You guys don't have to read all these. And I'm sure if I challenged everybody here today, this would double or triple. So what's different about rare? You know, things like there's so many diseases that are so poorly understood. In the bottom right there, I love this one. Rare brings us together and sets us apart, meaning that we have a lot of similarities because we're all in this rare disease space, but each one of our experiences is different. Really profound stuff. And I want to share one of my favorites, which is a few up here, and it comes from a rare mom who's a PhD who works with us. And she said, rare is where your life turns upside down and you wouldn't have it any other way. So rare is different. And in our view, rare needs to be treated differently and it needs special considerations. We can go to the next one. And in some cases, there are special considerations like tax breaks that have been put in place to incentivize academia and pharma companies to research rare diseases. Orphan designation, which allows companies that get products to market, and there are very few, as you guys know, to have some extra protection. And fast track designation, which accelerates products through that regulatory process, which can take 10, 12 years normally. And that can take that down in rare sometimes to even 7 years. So a fast track designation is a really meaningful thing. Unfortunately, that sort of special consideration doesn't always reach every element of those who are involved in rare. And we can go to the next slide. I'm only going to talk about the New England Journal of Medicine. You guys probably know the New England Journal of Medicine. It's arguably the most prestigious medical journal in the world. And with that becomes a whole lot of influence. Next one. I'm going to share with you the story of a company who's developing a drug for a rare disease called Familial Adenomatous Polyposis. And this is a potentially paradigm-changing drug because it's a disease that only has surgical intervention as a treatment, meaning we remove the colon, remove the rectum. It's a lifetime of procedures and more invasive surgeries, and it's a very difficult, like so many rare diseases, a very difficult rare disease. This company designed a trial with the advice of the FDA, one of the largest and longest trials ever in this particular indication, and established endpoints, also agreed with the FDA that meant the trial was going to have to run longer and we're going to have it include more patients in here. So set the bar really high in this particular clinical trial. And remember, one of the hardest things about clinical trials in rare is finding the patients. It's recruiting the patients because there aren't as many of them, you know, in like hypertension or diabetes or atherosclerosis. So this company, I thought, did a super job in designing this trial. Next one. When they went to publish the results, not they, when the authors, the investigators of the trial went to publish the results of the trial, they decided they were going to go for the New England Journal of Medicine, a very prestigious journal. What struck me about New England Journal of Medicine, because I come from a position in rare where patient advocates and caregivers are the most important, and we have to center, our thinking needs to be centered there. But if you look at the mission of the New England Journal of Medicine, it says our mission is to deliver highly valuable medical research and reviews, giving healthcare practitioners the knowledge and evidence they need to enhance their practice. What's missing from that? Well, the patients. David previously talked about how he has to become the quarterback for his own care, and he needs to be able to read these journal articles, and he gets his, and he and so many others in rare get their knowledge from reading these really important papers. So next slide. I'm going to share with you the journey that the authors went on in this, and if you just want to click right through till you get to the bottom left, I'll talk about it as you go. So longest, I'm going to start top left and I'll finish bottom left. The longest trial in FAP to date where there are no approved drugs, only surgical interventions. Unfortunately, in this phase 3 trial, the primary endpoint was not achieved, but there was clear benefit for a subpopulation based on secondary endpoints and post hoc analyses. And when I say subpopulation here, I'm talking about 90% of the, if we can go back one, 90% of patients with familial adenomatous polyposis. So a large subsection. There are about 30,000 patients in the US with FAP. So the manuscript, including primary and secondary endpoints and some post hoc analyses, were submitted to the New England Journal of Medicine in an absolutely transparent way. We missed the primary endpoint, but there's some really good stuff here that we need to publish, and also included the potential patient benefit in the manuscript itself. But the journal editor insisted only on reporting endpoints pre-specified in the protocol and removed any discussion of patient benefit, which we felt and the authors felt was so important in this clinical trial. Now, what you get is an academically pure publication. It's an ivory tower type of assessment of this particular clinical trial. If you read it, the trial failed. However, there are real world consequences for reporting trials in this way, especially when it comes to rare diseases. And this is why I say we do look for special considerations, because the information shared was incomplete and inaccurate from a data disclosure standpoint. Information beneficial to patients was suppressed or delayed. So what does that mean? That means payers, and sorry, my dog just came into my office. Oh, both of them. That meant that patients, just to the last one real quick, and then I'll go right to the last slide. So it meant that there was certain information that could have been beneficial to physicians and payers about this drug that they won't see. So people like David trying to consider his own care wouldn't get this information. So yeah, we consider that it's critical that journals consider the impact on the rare disease patient when they make their decisions to publish manuscripts strictly based on statistical analysis. So that's a story, and we can go all the way to the last slide here now. That's a story I wanted to share to show that this rare disease, and there's so many different roles that people play in the rare community. And this is just one of them. The ability to publish the results of our trials in a fair and balanced way in rare is so critically important. Finally, my last slide is why we're here today, and I'm speaking to the choir when I say let's be the face of change. I think it was Gandhi who said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." That's why we're here. Get involved wherever you can, because your opinion and your real life experiences matter, and they need to be shared. And of course, understand that change doesn't happen unless we all step up to make it happen. So I thank Nord and Leslie for asking me to be involved here, and I love hearing everybody else's experiences. And now I'm going to mute because my dog is whining and needs to go out.
Hey, thanks so much, Dan. Hey, for respect out of our state officials, again, slight change here. I'm going to ask Representative Matt Blumenthal and also Representative Jillian Gilchrist to come on. Matt Blumenthal is with the Barth syndrome, and Jillian is with the Public Health Committee. And Matt, before you get on, a personal one, I haven't seen you since you were 10 years old in my kitchen with my son, Jonathan Hopper. And I'm so glad that you and your dad, who has done backflips for the rare disease community, are continuing to carry the torch for us all. So thank you from all of us. Matt, are you there?
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, and it's great to be here with you today. And an honor and a pleasure. And thank you especially to Leslie for doing all you've done to organize this today. I'm with you today in my capacity as a state official, as a state representative and vice chair of the Judiciary Committee. But I'm also here in my capacity as someone with close connections with the rare disease community. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Barth Syndrome Foundation. Barth syndrome is a metabolic disorder. It generally affects the heart, muscles, immune system, and growth. It's extremely serious in most cases. It affects almost exclusively boys, and there are only several hundred recognized cases throughout the world, although we think there are a lot more out there because really these boys only, and now men, survive only in the most highly developed countries long enough to be diagnosed. And I guess my message today would be not only as a legislator, but also as someone who has been a part of this community. And again, my connection to this community comes through a close personal connection with a Barth boy and then young man named William R. McCurdy, who unfortunately lost his battle with the disease in 2014, but his work and his legacy lives on through the organization and all the work it's doing. My message is, it is so important that we all work together. Building this community, as you have all done, is so important, not only for the actual social and morale effects of the community, but also just because so many advances are made through the overlapping effects of our collective work. In Barth, the Barth Syndrome Foundation has gone from literally zero over the past 30 years to being in clinical trials for certain therapies. And that is a testament not only to the cohesiveness of the Barth community, but also to the lines of effort contributed by folks in other rare disease categories. It's really just such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. I have so much respect for the work that is being done here, and I really think that it's important. You know how to find us, and don't be shy about it. We, as Will Haskell said, State Senator Will Haskell, the rare disease community is not rare. There's a large percentage of people in the United States and in the world who suffer from so-called rare diseases, and many of them work through similar scientific lines or could have similar therapies and certainly have similar experiences. And when we work together, that is the only way that we can achieve the power and the respect and the results that everyone in this community deserves. So thank you for having me here. Thank you for all the work you're doing. And please never be shy about reaching out to me or anyone else in the legislature. I'm proud to be an ally, and I hope that we can continue to work together to achieve results for folks in this community. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Representative.
much, Matt. Appreciate that. And then Representative Jillian Gilchrist is next.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm Jillian Gilchrist. I represent the 18th District of West Hartford, and I serve on the Appropriations Committee, the Energy and Technology Committee, and as you heard, I'm Vice Chair on the Public Health Committee. And I just want to thank you so much for not only organizing this day and for all of your advocacy, but for being, like my good colleague just said, a fantastic partner. So I too come to this issue for personal reasons. I had a 25-year-old friend who was diagnosed with anaplastic astrocytoma phase 3, which is a rare type of brain cancer. Unfortunately, she has passed. It's going on 8 years, but that opened my eyes and taught me quite a bit. And then how I got involved with your organization is through an individual I met on the campaign trail, Colleen Brunetti. I was having a, when we could meet in living rooms, a living room conversation, and she was explaining the struggles she was going through with her insurance company, and since has taught me all about copay accumulators. And I've gone to DC with her to speak about this issue. And this is year 3 of introducing a bill at the Connecticut General Assembly with regards to copay accumulators. We've met with both sides of the aisle here in Connecticut and have bipartisan support for this proposal. So my big takeaway message is keep doing what you're doing and educating us. We, as lawmakers, we come to this role for a variety of different reasons, and our backgrounds are all different and we don't know everything about everything. And so meeting with us and explaining how various issues are impacting you and the communities you work with is what makes us better policymakers and can help us to pass legislation that will support and help you. So again, I thank you for including me in today. Consider me a partner, like my colleague said. I'm always available to have conversations, not only to brainstorm, but to think through how we can make the best policy possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Gilchrist, for your advocacy and your support of our entire community. It's always a joy to have this amazing partnership between constituents and their legislatures. So we greatly appreciate that. I want to just turn over next to Ben Daigle with the Charge Syndrome Foundation, and after him, Katie Gillick, who is a patient who advocates for those with post-surgical hypoparathyroidism. So Ben, if you can take it away.
My name is Ben Daigle. I'm a volunteer Connecticut State Family Liaison with the Charge Syndrome Foundation. Charge syndrome is a recognizable genetic syndrome with a known pattern of features. It is an extremely complex syndrome involving extensive medical and physical difficulties that differ from child to child. The foundation empowers families with support programs, builds networks and partnerships to promote awareness, and invests in leading-edge research. And more information is at chargesyndrome.org. The paradox of rare disease is that while each disease is rare, we, the families across our state, nation, and world, are common. On Rare Disease Day and every day, we are your colleagues, we are your constituents, we are your community, and we are Connecticut too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Katie, you're on.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Gillick, and I'm from Shelton, Connecticut. And first, I just want to thank everyone who had me here today, Leslie Bennett, nor the Rare Action Network, and of course, our state legislators for being here to hear all of our stories. I'm a new member of the Connecticut Rare Action Network, and I'm honored to be here today with you. My hope is not that you look at me today and believe what you see. My hope is actually that you take my word for it. This in and of itself characterizes the experience of many patients with hypoparathyroidism and with rare disease who struggle to get the help and treatment they need to effectively manage their conditions. My disease is invisible until it's not. Hypoparathyroidism is a disorder that causes lower than normal levels of calcium in the blood due to insufficient amounts of parathyroid hormone, which is produced by the parathyroid glands. The condition is most commonly acquired due to damage to these glands as a result of neck surgery, but there are also members of our community whose condition is of genetic, idiopathic, or autoimmune origin. Hypopara can cause many symptoms such as fatigue, weakness, tingling, numbness, muscle cramping and spasming, and issues with memory and mental function. Other serious complications include seizures, cardiac arrhythmias, and long-term kidney damage from taking large amounts of calcium supplements to manage the disease. I was diagnosed with hypopara in January 2019 following the second of 2 surgeries to remove my thyroid due to pathologically aggressive cancer. Since then, I have had 2 hospitalizations for episodes of hypocalcemia related to hypopara. I have taken ownership of my care, spending hours at medical libraries, participating in research studies, reading published medical articles, attending virtual conferences, and putting together my own patient and medication summaries so that I can educate myself and my physicians about my circumstances. I'm a good fighter, but it doesn't mean that I don't need help. Physicians who are intimately familiar with this disease know that the current standard of care, which are calcium and vitamin D supplements, is not enough for most hypopara patients. That's why when the FDA pulled Natpara, the only FDA-approved drug for this condition, from the shelves in 2019, it was devastating to many in our community. In response, for the first time ever, they created a special use program so that patients whose condition is life-threatening can access the medication. Still, many of our patients continue to feel the ripple effects of Natpara's absence. I actually had one physician tell me to limp along until better options are available to treat this disease. Although these options are on the way, thanks to many of our amazing physicians and organizations, such as the Hypoparathyroidism Association, they will not get there if we limp. Being here today is my way of choosing to run, and I invite you all to join me. We need a Rare Disease Advisory Council in order to implement protections, facilitate unity, drive awareness, and give patients and care providers a seat at the table to advocate for all rare diseases. We need to build communities that understand us, that consider us, and that will fight to protect our interests. We as disease communities already have our voices. We just need you to help us magnify them. We need you to help us make productive change together. I want to thank again Leslie Bennett, the Rare Action Network, and NORD for having me, our wonderful MCs, John and Father Nick, and of course the Hypopara Association for all of their support and advocacy for patients with hypopara. Thank you all so much.
Katie, thanks so much. Some great words, and I hope those resonate with everybody who's listening. And we'll be viewing this tape, I believe, which will be on YouTube next week. The next one up is Donna Ciacci. And Donna, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, with the Liver Foundation. And since I represent a rare liver cancer, I am very interested in what your foundation does and your role in the rare disease community. So Donna, you're on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie, for adding me to the agenda. I'm very humbled by particularly the patients and caregivers who have been on this call. You know, we who are not personally afflicted with a rare disease, I think it's just very humbling to hear what you all go through, and I'm inspired by the fight that you all have within you. The American Liver Foundation is an educational and informational nonprofit organization, and we are invested in educating people about all aspects of liver disease, but there are some liver diseases that are very rare, and they affect people nationwide and globally. We have a website that has information about these diseases. We also have a helpline and a chat line that reaches outside of the United States. So we get calls and chats from people in India and Pakistan and all around the world about rare diseases and all types of liver diseases. So we are a resource for them to provide information. And more than once I've referred to the NORD website to get information to pass on to folks, because it's a font of information there. So we are a helpline, we are an information source, and we also have webinars and educational programming to offer to the public and to medical providers to help raise awareness about various diseases. The reason I ended up on this agenda, I think, is I reached out to Leslie about an upcoming webinar we have for medical providers about a very rare disease called acute hepatic porphyria. And so we're hoping to spread the word, because this is one of these horribly misdiagnosed illnesses that people suffer because the symptoms mimic all kinds of other illnesses, from neurological problems to gastroenterological problems to gynecological issues. So people go 10, 15 years with this misdiagnosis and find out after the fact, after going through all kinds of trials and tribulations, that they have this illness. So so we're really a resource for folks who need information that they may not get anywhere else about liver diseases, both rare and common. I'll put my contact information in our website in the chat. So if anybody wants information from us, or if you need to pass it on to folks, we would be happy to be a resource. And regarding Rare Disease Day, just so you know, we have a patient advisory committee that I have asked to share information about Rare Disease Day on their social media networks, so that we can help get the word out about this, and be part of this global campaign, and make sure everybody's aware of what's going on, because it is very important. Nobody should be struggling or limping along alone. I'm appalled that a doctor told somebody to limp along. That's, oh my goodness. So we aren't limping. We're going to try and help you run too. But I'll put our contact info in the chat.
Thank you, Donna. And it's something else to produce something like this, as I'm learning, being a co-MC. So I thank everyone for their patience and bearing with us as we've modified some of the bits on the agenda and made a few changes in real time. Want to just next call up Alan Gunsberg, who is an advocate for those with sight issues and retinitis pigmenta. Alan?
Actually, I live here in Greenwich, Connecticut. I also serve the town of Greenwich as the chairman of the Board of Human Services and the chairman of the First Selectmen's Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities. I'm also the immediate past chairman of the State Rehab Council for the Blind. And as we just heard, I was underdiagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa in my 30s. And the underdiagnosis came from a very reputable doctor, one of the better retina specialists in New York City. And it's because I have a metabolic genetic disorder called adult Refsum disease. And adult Refsum disease is a leukodystrophy. I have the inability to process a long chain fatty acid that comes out in all of our diets and milk and in ruminant animals. The strange part is what we've heard today. It's doctors go through many years of training to become doctors, but when you're 1 in a million, it's very difficult for them to find the exact cause of what your issue is. I come from a family where I'm the only person with the affliction. My parents are Holocaust survivors. There's no family history. And understanding that I had lost most of my vision and a good part of my hearing in my late 40s, and I had to give up my job and driving, I was determined to find out why me, how this happened. And genetic testing, thanks to the Clinton administration for mapping the human genome, was available. And after 4 tests, I found out that I had a disease that had I known 20 plus years ago when I had gotten my RP diagnosis, who knows, I could have changed my diet. I could still be working and I could still be driving. So I think that there's a great job that individuals and organizations like the ones that we've heard today, and the one that I'm now part of called the Global DARE Foundation, which is working to enhance the diet, to teach ophthalmologists and optometrists and other professionals how to go past a retinitis pigmentosa diagnosis and look to see if it's anything deeper. And also at some point, looking to some liver gene therapy to lighten the load of phthalic acid that my body has stored up for the past 60 years. I thank everybody here today for being on this call. I would ask the legislature to understand that even with disabilities, individuals still want to work, still want to be productive, still want to be part of our community, still want the ability to get a COVID shot in time with our comorbidities. And I thank you all for listening today. I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, Alan. We appreciate your testimony. I want to just next call up Greg Palletti, founder of the Golden Lights Foundation, an organization that focuses on supporting research on pediatric cancer treatments by partnering.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to make a quick announcement. So we are at time for the event. We can hold on for an additional 5 minutes. Unfortunately, we will have to end the program. So the final speakers, I know you guys have some great points. If you can please kind of do a fast forwarded version. I apologize. It was great speakers, but we do have to wrap up in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. So Greg, and then after Greg, Paul Pescatello, and then we'll close. Oh, they must not be on anymore. All right, I just searched for them in the participants box and I don't see them there.
So Paul Pescatello, I'm here.
Sorry, it looks like mine cut off. Sorry about that.
Take it away.
Go ahead, Greg.
I'll be very brief. I apologize for that. So I'm coming with two hats. One is the president of Golden Lights Foundation, which we basically raise money for pediatric cancer research, as well as a father of a cancer survivor. My daughter, who is now 5, has been in remission or has been out of treatment for about 6 months, and is in remission and has been in remission for about 2 years. Golden Lights, basically, what we do is advocate for pediatric cancer research because the National Cancer Institute, NCI, accounts for only about 4% budget for pediatric cancer research, and the rest of the money has to be raised privately. My daughter us today fully private cancer research money dollars. She was part of experimental trials in order to kind of get her to where she is, and she's alive as a result of that. So our goal is to raise money for the best and the brightest doctors in the country, and to identify those research projects that will be able to be the most impactful on the rest of the pediatric cancer world. So that I'm just trying to be very succinct and to the point, and I hope everyone can learn a little bit more about pediatric cancer research, and we would love to kind of support whoever wants to join us. Thank you for inviting me this morning.
Thank you, Greg. Paul, you can take it.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So I'll be brief in these few minutes we have left. I guess there are just 2 points I'd like to make in this short time. First, that rare diseases are treated and rare disease cures and treatments are researched and developed the same way as for other diseases with larger patient populations. This makes supporting public policies that reflect an understanding of the very unique arc of biomedical R&D a very important priority. You've heard me and others point out over and over again that it takes about $2.7 billion and 12 or so years to bring a new medicine from concept to FDA approved product. Far more research projects fail than succeed. So tax and other policies that appreciate this unique profile, policies that show an understanding that companies and research institutions won't be able to do the research unless they are able to recoup their huge investments. Policies that reflect that are critical. Anything we can do to promote and reward R&D helps speeds rare disease research, helps us bring rare disease research across the finish line to FDA approved products. The second point quickly I want to make is that rare disease research is of course critical for the rare disease patient community. But it's also important to remind ourselves, and especially policymakers, that rare disease research helps us understand disease mechanisms generally, like inflammation and cell growth, that inform and support research affecting much larger patient populations. So supporting rare disease research benefits all of us directly. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And this, I believe, concludes the day's proceedings. Kristen, is there more? And John, I want to thank John as co-MC, leading the way, and Leslie and everyone who spoke personally. Just a little plug on that Rare Disease Advisory Council, which I know we've talked about, and I hope it's something that we continue to push forward on. It said, I think Kristen used the language of sunset. I think it's time for the sun to rise on that task force. And I'll be right there alongside every one of you as we walk along, as we run, on this journey together. So I appreciate that. And John, if you have a closing word, and then probably Kristen will take it out from here, right?
Just thanks to Nord, thanks to everybody. We have a lot of things to do ahead for every one of the rare diseases ahead. And as I said in the beginning, be the disease that roars. Be loud, be big, be bold, get the attention of everybody, and you will succeed. So good luck to everybody in this year. Kristen?
Thank you. And I just, again, thank you, Father Nick and John, for emceeing today's event. Thank you, Leslie, for your contributions. We really couldn't have had the success of today without you all. I do apologize that we were on a tight time limit. We have a quick, brief closing video, and then you can certainly log off. We thank you all for joining us today. We hope to continue these conversations throughout the year, and hope to see you at some Connecticut RAN events soon. We'll talk soon.
Every year on the last day of February, the National Organization for Rare Disorders joins together with others around the world to raise awareness of the challenges faced by people living with rare diseases. Achieving health equity is even more difficult for rare patients. To have equity in health means everyone has an opportunity to be as healthy as possible, regardless of social, geographic, economic, or other obstacles that may be working against them. At NORD, we appreciate your support, which allows us to work on issues like health equity and many others, and for our staff and volunteers to bring them to the forefront on Rare Disease Day.
From the volunteer state ambassadors, we would like to say thank you to all of our Rare Action Network supporters for helping us connect with rare patients and families in our state.
And thank you for allowing the Rare Action Network to raise important issues with state lawmakers on Rare Disease Day and throughout the year.
Did you know that in medical school I was told when you hear hoofbeats, they think horses, not zebras? What about the more than 25 million Americans living with a rare disease? At NORD, we are humbled to provide help and resources to our zebras and their caregivers.
NORD support allowed me to catch up on some overdue bills, including my rent. Thank you for your support, NORD, and thank you for supporting Rare Disease Day.
From all of us at NORD, thank you for your dedication to the rare disease community on Rare Disease Day and every day.
And that concludes our program. Thank you all very much. Tune in online on Sunday for official Rare Disease Day. There'll be a lot going on online and virtually, so we hope to see you online. Thank you again. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.